How's it going, everybody? Sorry, I was just sharing the link for the live stream. So, welcome. And I've been good. How are you? And how are you? And what's up to you? Ondar, Mazrad, and Shanawaz. And apparently there's several other people. Matthias, what's up? Can you guys hear me all right? Sweet. Frederick, Ahmad, cool. Thank you. Alright, so if you haven't done one of these before, basically just ask developer questions and career questions, stuff like that, and I'll be happy to answer them as best as I am able. Oh, Colt Steele just texted me. We're friends. This is the first time I've heard from him in a little while. Sorry, Colt, you're gonna have to wait. I'm in a live session. I'll text you later. Alright, here we go. Alright, Super Bowler. Hi Ian, can you please comment on how to avoid memory leaks in your Node.js application? Yes, I can. Give me a second and I'll pull up some stuff. Some information on that. Alright, so let me pull this up while I answer your question so you can see what's happening on the screen. Alright, make sure. Okay, cool. Alright, so if you're looking at this, can everybody see my browser now? So to answer the question, how can you avoid memory leaks in your Node.js application? Here on the Express.js documentation, the official Express website, you can see under Advanced Topics, Security Best Practices, and then down under Use Cookies Securely, there's a whole little thing here. So by default, well, let's go back. Alright, so to ensure cookies don't open your app to exploits, don't use the default session cookie name and set cookie security options appropriately. There are two main middleware cookie session modules, Express Session and Cookie Session. And then the main difference between those two modules is how they save the cookie session data. Express Session middleware stores session data on the server, and it only saves the session ID in the cookie itself, not session data. By default, it uses in-memory storage and is not designed for a production environment. And so that default Express Session is where you run into issues with the in-memory storage. That's where you get memory leaks. That's why it's not designed for production. And you'll get that error message if you push like Yelp Camp or something from Colt Steele's Web Developer Bootcamp or a similar application up to something like Heroku. You will get a message telling you that memory leaks are a problem. So in production, you'll need to set up a scalable session store. So then they give you a list, compatible session stores. Click on this link, and there's a bunch of them. And some of them use Redis, and some of them use Mongo, and basically they just use these different persistence databases, whatnot. Some use SQLite, some use MySQL, and so on. So I use there's Connect Mongo, which has 1.7 thousand stars, and then Connect MongoDB Session, which only has 111. I can't remember which one works better for me, but I would start with Connect Mongo, and if you run into any issues with it, then go ahead and switch to Connect MongoDB Session. So then you just click on the name of the store that you want to use, Session Store, and then just go through the usage. So Express 4 or 5 if you're using the newest version. You set your session to Express Session. You've already done that if you're following along with like my course or Colt's course. And then Mongo store is a new variable, require Connect Mongo, and then you pass in the session that you just declared on the previous line. And then in this middleware right here, app.use, you pass in the session with some configuration options. In this case, secret is foo. The store points to new Mongo store options. And so those options, you're going to need to go down further and figure out which options you want to use. And that's it. That's how you set it up for production. You'll have to play around with it. You may end up, going into the GitHub for this, and if you run into problems, you may have to go up here to, let's see here, issues, and then opening an issue or just seeing what other people have used, other people have asked, and figure it out that way. So that hopefully answers your question about memory leaks in production. Okay, so jumping back over here, let's see. What should I learn before I am able to create a framework like Express? So you would use a framework like Express to make your life easier when developing web applications, but before you learn that, as a prerequisite, you just need to learn JavaScript, and then maybe a little bit of Node, but not really. Like Express could be your introduction to Node. So I would just make sure that you understand like how to declare variables and assign them, and how for loops work, and what different data types are, number and string and object and array, stuff like that. Once you have the fundamentals of JavaScript down, then you should be able to pick out something like Express pretty easily. And you can go through the Getting Started guide on Express, the official documentation, the website, expressjs.com or .org, whatever it is. And it should be fairly simple to walk through. And then, of course, there's courses like Colt's course and my course that walk through how to use Express, from beginning to end. So Axios and Fetch have different at-side performance. What do I recommend? So I'm not entirely sure what you're asking, but Fetch, I'm almost positive, is a API that's now included with JavaScript, and then Axios is something that is a library that you'd have to include separately. So if you can do whatever it is you're trying to do with Fetch, make an HTTP request, to get some data from some website or API rather, then I would try to use Fetch first. That way you don't have to bring in Axios. But if you can do it with Fetch, if you can do it with Fetch, great, do it with Fetch. If you can't for whatever reason, Axios offers something that Fetch doesn't, then it just makes sense that you would switch and use Axios instead. And then some developers just prefer one over the other. So maybe experiment with both and find out which one works better for you. So now I am watching database association video of Colt's, and I'm just all over the map. Should I follow along the course? So I'm not sure what you mean by all over the map. Like, are you watching the videos sequentially? And are you saying that you're having difficulty with that particular lecture or section? I would definitely make sure that you follow the course from start to finish. Don't jump around. Occasionally somebody will say, oh, well, I skipped jQuery because, I heard it's not relevant anymore. Like, fine, if that's what you want to do, that's okay. But with something like the database association videos, like, you'll want to watch those from beginning to end and in the order that they were created. And if you're having difficulty with it, then of course you can always hire someone like me to help you in a one-on-one session. You can always ask questions in the Q&A for free on Udemy. And a TA like myself will get back to you with some help, or you can ask we have a Discord channel for Colt's course and a Facebook group. So there's plenty of avenues for you to get help if you are struggling. How frequently do I use data structures in software development? Not like nothing out of the ordinary. I usually, like, I'm not writing my own data structures typically. Like, I model data certain ways and try to use best practices when doing so. But in terms of like using a linked list or something, like, I don't do any of that. Like using a graph or a tree or whatever. Like, with all the work that I do is obviously mostly teaching, but all the contract work that I do, it's just your basic web development. You'll have like a collection that you need to iterate over, so you use a loop, things like that. Like, if I'm modeling data, then I'm using something like an ORM if it's relational data, or a ODM if it's non-relational. So like Mongoose is an ODM, and I don't use Rails anymore, but Active Record is a ORM, and then there's Bookshelf is one for like if you're using JavaScript, Node, things like that. If you want to use MySQL or Postgres or SQLite with like a Node application Express, then you would use something like Bookshelf, which uses what is it called? Some type of query builder in the background. Not SQLite. SQLite is also another ORM. But anyway, point being, I don't like all that data structure algorithm stuff. There's two main purposes that you would want to learn it for. One is to get through interviews, because that's how like these different companies will weed out beginners basically. They'll ask you to implement a certain data structure or use a data structure in some type of algorithm, and that'll get you into the company. And then if you're working somewhere that's like writing like some pretty serious complicated applications, then you may end up using some of that stuff. It just depends, and especially if you're dealing with lots of data, then you're going to want to use the most efficient data structures possible. So hopefully that answers your question. And so next one is currently applying for junior developer jobs. How likely is it that a company out of state would hire me? So right now, obviously the playing field is kind of changing just because of this whole COVID-19 thing. So, depending on what skills you offer, a company might be willing to pay you either to work remotely, which would be awesome, of course, or to relocate. And they'll have those kinds of things listed in the job application, or you can just go to a website that specifically has remote jobs, like remote.com, or just filter out remote jobs if you're looking for them. Somewhere like I think Stack Overflow has jobs, and of course all the regular, Monster, Indeed, all that stuff. But how likely is it? It just depends on what you bring to the table. And if they need you, then the likelihood is really high. And if they don't, then obviously it's low. So there's a lot of unknowns in there depending on your current situation. So Saw, still going live randomly. That's basically how my schedule is. I can't really commit to... I think I may have mentioned in a previous chat that I just saw myself touch my face. Don't touch your face. In a previous live chat that I would try to commit to a schedule, but so far I haven't been able to do anything like that. So for now, they will be spontaneous and intermittent. So hopefully that works. Yeah, no red lights. Daylight outside. In fact, I kind of want to go outside. The weather, like, it's been raining here like crazy. It's like super doomsday-ish, but now there's like a little bit of sunshine, blue sky, some clouds and stuff, so I kind of want to get out there and breathe some fresh air. I've been stuck inside for, I don't know, like almost a week or something like that. So I just posted a question in the Code Talk Discord section. I'm confused on Mongo references. It seems like there are keywords used for getting object ID and accessing the model. Is that from Mongoose? So if you're talking about like the ref keyword where it's like ref colon and then the name of the model, I'd have to see what you're talking about. So I can jump over there real quick and try to answer it for you quickly. Okay, is it Thuperman? Is that your username over there? Okay, so when you are, I don't want to pull it up because I don't want to show everybody else's stuff in there, but I can pull it up in the browser. Let's see here. Bootcamp. Give me just a second. OBS. Okay. Let's go look at like Yelp Camp, for instance. So a campground has comments, and comments are an array of objects, and then inside that object there's a keyword type and then a keyword ref. And so if you go to Mongoose schema, just search for Mongoose schema, and of course the first thing you'll get is the Mongoose documentation. Then you can see here defining your schema is the first part. And obviously you can just embed an object that has properties, but what we're doing is we're referencing a entirely different model. And so instead of just creating a new object that gets stored or embedded rather in there, we want to reference this other model. So let me see if I can find this stuff on referencing. Connection, discriminator, Mongoose schema, aggregate, virtual type. Let's just keep going down. Let's look for Mongoose populate. So it might have query population. Here we go. So you can see an example here. Person schema has stories, stories has type and ref. So just going off the documentation, we can start with saving refs. So saving refs to other documents works the same way that you normally save properties, just assign the ID value. Okay. This is talking about saving the reference, but basically what we have here, let me pull my, did I have some code up a second ago? Oh, it was in the browser. Here we go. So you create a model, right? Comment model. Notice this has a capital C for comment. We're referencing that model. So if we go over to models and we go to comment.js, and here we're creating a new model with mongoose.model, and right here, this first argument, we're calling it the comment model with capital C comment. So if we want to reference this model right here inside of this other file, then all we have to do is use the ref keyword, short for reference, and then tell it which model. And because that model is registered in the ODM in Mongoose, it knows what we're talking about when we reference comment. It's not going to have anything else in there except for the models that we've currently created and registered with this mongoose.model method. Okay. Likewise, if you were to associate campground, like maybe the user has an array of campgrounds that they've created or something like that, then you would do ref campground. Now, this object, basically this array is an array of object IDs. And so the syntax to pass in that object ID is an object, and we tell it the type of the object is this object ID. This is a special type. The object ID is a special type created specifically by MongoDB. Okay, and so we access that with Mongoose schema types object ID. But now it needs to know, okay, so what's getting stored inside of this array is a bunch of object IDs. right? But where do they point to? What is the reference that those object IDs point to? Because ultimately, you're probably going to want to populate each one of those IDs into the actual full object, comment object, that it represents. And so the only way that we know that those are comments is if we use this ref keyword. So your question is, are these like special keywords? And the answer is yes. These are from Mongoose. Type and ref inside of an object is how we tell this model that the model that is being referenced inside of this array is in fact the comment model. And what is actually going to be stored here are object IDs. So that's where the type is, the object ID, and then the reference is the model that it's referencing. So hopefully that helps answer your question. Alright, so, yep, no problem. Glad that was helpful. Alright, I want to be able to create a framework from scratch. Definitely doable. I mean, think of it this way. What you're talking about when you say framework is I'm assuming specifically MVC framework. So MVC is model, view, controller. Okay, it's a paradigm that we follow when building web applications, where we have a model that tells us about the data, and we can use that to connect to our database. And then we have our views, which is the view layer. That's what the user on the other end of the internet over on their computer, that's what they're going to ultimately see. And then we have the controller, and the controller is kind of like the logic layer, where we handle the routing that points to the different actions, which is basically methods or functions depending on what syntax of the language that you're using is. But the point is, we have our data modeling, we have our logic, which is the controller, and then we have our view, which is the data being rendered. Okay, and so you can follow these different frameworks and create your own for sure. I would start really simple. Start by creating like an ORM, which is an object, well, ODM if you're using Mongodb, or ORM if you're using some relational database like MySQL or Postgres. But you want a really simple way to be able to interact with your data. And so you need a way to create schemas, right? And so that would be the whole model layer. Basically, you need a way to be able to store information about your models, which is your data modeling. And also not just store it, but be able to interact with it. So that's where the ODM or ORM comes into play. And so you can write that stuff on your own. All these things are doable, but it's going to take you a little while. There's entire walkthroughs for like how to create a framework like Ruby on Rails. And Ruby on Rails is an MVC framework using the Ruby language. There may be some out there for Express. The other thing, or for Node. But the other thing out there is that you can go and just look at the source code for an existing one, right? Like, these are open source projects, some of them. And so if you want to create your own, then you can reference one that already exists in the language that you're going to use to write it. Would I recommend doing that? You'll learn a lot. It's going to be a really big project. I would start really small, really simple, and just build onto it. And then eventually, if you want to keep doing it, you can, or you can just take what you've learned and then continue on with a different project at that time. What junior job should I apply for to get paid in toilet paper? Probably a junior developer job at a toilet paper company. Some intermediate to advanced level courses for web dev, for sure. Glad you asked. So I have a website, Myank, if I'm saying that correctly. TopRatedTechCourses.com has lots of courses that I recommend. I pick all these courses that are 4.5 rating or above, which I need to update those. I update them. I need to write a script to update them automatically, but basically they can change, obviously, right, over time. And so it's, as far as the last time that I checked, which was like a week or two ago, those were all like 4.5 and above, except for one of them is a 4.4 last I checked. But it's like a course that's been around forever, so I just leave it in there for the heck of it. But anyway, it's got some courses in there that you can peruse and see if any of them tickle your fancy. And then I think there's a deal going on. If you go to my community wall, you'll see If you don't have a Udemy account, then you can get courses for up to 75% off until the end of the month. Also, there's some other sales coming out towards the end of the month. If they're not already on sale for like $9.99 or $11.99 or like really cheap, just wait. I'll let y'all know. I can't tell you. I think that's like a breach of my contract to like tell you the dates. But whenever it does happen, I'll let everybody know. What do you think is the best and most used backend language? I'm not pretty comfortable with Python, JS, and Java, but I'm not sure what to focus on. So Tony, that's a super common question. And I typically go with, there's not necessarily a best language. It's more of a correct tool for the job at hand. So you got to ask yourself some questions first, like what is the job that you're trying to accomplish? Are you doing automation? Python might be the tool for the job. Are you doing some corporate website or whatever? Java might be. Are you doing Android application? Java might be it, unless you want to use JavaScript. There's plenty of tools out there now to be able to build Android and iOS applications with JavaScript. Some things are proprietary where you have to use Java for them, or at least you used to, and now they have these newer tools, like for instance, like we just said with mobile web development. If you're doing math-based, stop touching my face. If you're doing math-based stuff, Python's probably the way to go. Science stuff, Python. So you just have to ask yourself what it is you're trying to do. And then which one do you like the most? So the one, if you're like in the learning phase and you know a little bit of each and you're trying to figure out like which one can I get really good at, which one do you like writing the most, right? That's probably the one you want to use. Okay. Some of my seniors are better at software development, but the people who are good at problem solving, some of them had only one project in their portfolio, get selected at top companies. So I'm not sure if that's a comment or a question. But to comment on it, yeah, if you're good at problem solving, that's a really valuable trait to have in companies. Like I heard someone said something the other day, like companies aren't hiring you based on, like as a junior role anyway, based on what you know necessarily, but also on like showing that you have what it takes to solve problems. Like they want you to learn while they're at their company, and obviously they expect you to get better and better as time goes on, but they want to see that drive and that curiosity with learning. And so if you can, even if you can't solve the algorithm in the interview, if you can show them that you have a good strategy and system in place for solving problems, and you have the drive and the passion and everything for it, then they're probably going to hire you. So, should I learn only Mongoose or MongoDB and Mongoose? So MongoDB is the database that Mongoose works with. Mongoose is ODM, Object Document Mapping System, something like that. And it just allows you to easily communicate with the MongoDB database, but it's backwards compatible with MongoDB syntax. So if there's something that Mongoose can't do or can't do easily or could easily be done easier or more easily with MongoDB, then you'll want to use the MongoDB syntax. I would recommend, the answer is you need to learn both. You need to for sure learn MongoDB, and then if you want to make your life easier when you're interacting with web applications, then you also want to use Mongoose. And Mongoose is basically I don't know of any other. There's probably some out there, but Mongoose is like the main ODM that you use with MongoDB, at least when dealing with JavaScript. Do you think doing a Udemy bootcamp plus, say, a couple JS, couple Angular, React courses, plus a couple personal projects is adequate skill portfolio to start applying for jobs? You could apply long before that. You don't need a couple of this, couple of that, couple of this, couple of that. Like one Udemy bootcamp plus just a couple of other resources to like help you, get a little more advanced about this or more up to date if they don't use the most modern syntax. But you don't need to take 10 courses. You don't need to take 6 courses. I would say you could probably get away with taking like three courses tops, and you should be able to apply for a job. And of course, it's not like, oh, just take the course and then you get the job. Like you have to understand what the course is teaching you. So if you just took one course, but you understood, like a boot camp, but you understood everything that was in it, like you're already doing pretty well to be on your way to a entry-level junior developer job. And then there's people like Andre Nyogi, who kind of like preaches the skip the entry-level developer job and go straight into a senior software job. Nothing against him. I don't know him at all or anything like that. But I wouldn't push that message, because becoming a quote-unquote senior level developer, or even an intermediate level developer, takes time, experience, and a lot of things that you can't get from just taking a course or just building a couple projects. Like, you need to work somewhere for a while, or you need to do some freelance work or something to learn these different lessons. If you go in and maybe you fake it till you make it and you do end up getting an intermediate or advanced level job, and then you get in there and you just find out that like you're drowning and you can't swim because you've gotten in too deep, and you know, if anything, you'll be drowning in imposter syndrome, because people will be talking to you expecting you to be able to do certain things, and you just won't be there at that level yet, and so you'll be like, what? So like, there's nothing wrong with a junior developer job. The market may be saturated a little bit more with junior developers since the advent of like online boot camps and in-person boot camps. So you'll want to find ways to set yourself apart from the average Joe that's just coming up with like, oh, I know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, I need a job, and figure out a way to, you know, make yourself stand out. But there's nothing wrong with taking a junior developer job. Can I migrate web developer bootcamp code into the new syntax? I have a video where I like got started on it, but I have I'm looking at my GitHub right now. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Where is it? Yeah, so this isn't like everything there is that's modern. It's only like a couple of the main things that I use a lot. There's a ton more syntax out there that you can implement, but I'll share the link to the repo and check it out. Like, I'm not, you know, I may make a video eventually, but the reality is like that's a course. Like, migrating the Yelp Camp application to all new syntax is a course, because yeah, I can go through it in an hour or 2 hours and update all the syntax as best as I can, but stopping and teaching each one of those individual syntaxes, like this is arrow functions, this is let and const, and this is how they work, and going into detail, like that's a whole course in and of itself. And so if, like my Code Node course, which if you're not taking it already, feel free to look it up, it's free. It does a lot of that, where it like teaches you the different syntax as we implement it. And it's not Yelp Camp, but it's an Express application that's very similar to Yelp Camp. So you could use what you learned there and go back if you wanted to and update the Yelp Camp. Anyway, is that something I'll do in the future? Maybe, but I can't promise it. MongoDB seems easier than MySQL. Is it necessary to learn MongoDB? It just depends on what job you're getting. If you're taking a job that requires both, you need to learn both. If you're taking one that needs MySQL or some other flavor of SQL, then you need to learn SQL, and vice versa with MongoDB or some other non-relational database. But it doesn't hurt to learn both. And MySQL is one of the like ongoing top databases in the world, so it's going to be at a lot of different companies, and it's worthwhile to learn it. What are some projects, how many, and what specifically would you think a company would really want to see if they want to hire me? Let's see here. I've kind of talked about this before in the past, where basically it's not necessarily about the quantity of projects, but more so about the quality. If you had one really baller project that was decked out and like really nice with a good theme and everything and just completely touched up, then that's going to look better, I think, than like 4, 5, 6, 10 projects that are half done. So the question really is, can you put in the time and effort to really polish up a single project? And then once you've done that, you can move on to the next one. If you already have multiple projects, then try to go through each one individually and make it as complete and good looking and functioning and production ready as possible. So Krishna's question is about living in a rural part of the UK, big dev shortage. What kind of technical algorithm questions did you get in a junior level role at a small company? It's up in the air. It varies. You could practice that kind of stuff all day, but it's like, if you're just memorizing how to do certain algorithm, data structure, technical stuff, and you memorize like 20 different ways to do it, and then they ask you the 21st way that you didn't memorize, like, you're kind of screwed. Unless in the process of memorizing those 20, you like picked up on some patterns and some techniques, then you'll be like, oh yeah, I can solve that. So the more important thing is kind of understanding these different patterns and paradigms in programming, and also learning how to problem solve, such that when you do get asked any kind of technical algorithm question, data structure, anything like that, big or small companies, you're able to tackle it the best way possible. So I don't have a magic ball. I can't tell you what kind of questions that you would get asked in your area by small companies. So your best bet is just working on learning how to problem solve and picking up on some of these patterns and whatnot that are being used for solving those kinds of problems. Jamoni, I got an error in my Bootcamp and you can't seem to find a solution. You can ask in the Discord. You can also ask in the official Q&A, and you'll get help within like a day or so from one of the TAs. Flutter or React Native? I think someone asked this last time. I don't know anything about Flutter, and I really don't know anything about React Native either, so I'm almost positive there's already like Flutter versus React Native videos on YouTube, and they're probably by people that know more than I do, so I would just look it up. What do I hate or don't like most about the web? Like the internet in general, or just like coding, like which side of it? I mean, man, that's a loaded question. Okay, coding, that kind of narrows it down. I hate sitting in front of a computer all day, It's like, I'm not unhealthy, but it's definitely made it more difficult to stay like in shape and stuff over the years. Like the moment I started coding, like I was at a boot camp and then like started getting jobs and sitting at computers all day and working for 8 hours or for however many hours a day teaching and stuff, like I just started putting on weight and getting out of shape, stuff like that. So, and like physically, like I have injuries that are hard to rehabilitate, and also just like annoying like posture. Like right now you can see me, I'm like kind of hunched over and I can't sit like this all day. I should be able to, but I'm working on something really difficult, and then I'm just like really focusing on it, and I'm focusing on the problem. The next thing you know, my head is going forwards, my shoulders are rolled over, and it really messes up. Like I have a lot of pain in my chest and my back and my ribs and stuff. So that's like my least favorite thing about being just coding in general. Pyro Beast, what's up? Thank you for dropping by, and thank you for the kind words. JS kicks me so hard that I'm still stuck on array, although I'm going well along with others going to Bootcamp. Yeah, the array stuff is difficult, Mary. I offer tutoring, and so if you're interested in that sort of thing, I can link down here tinyurl.com/devsproutbooking. I'm pretty sure that's the link. Basically, tutoring with me is almost like what we're doing on this live session. It's a little more focused, a little more straight to the point, and like, you know, obviously I'm aware and sensitive of people's time. But if you schedule 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes or an hour or whatever, you know, I would help you. By the time we were done, I would help you understand something like arrays. And you can get those questions answered really quickly, as opposed to like struggling with something and then maybe Googling and not being able to find it there, maybe asking and having to wait a couple days for someone on like a message board to get back to you. Anyway, I offer tutoring, and I understand right now it's a difficult time for a lot of people because of the whole COVID thing, so I'm willing to work with people in terms of rates. So just ignore the rates that are on there and just reach out to me, and we can work something out. That goes for anybody else that's watching too. If you want tutoring, you need help getting over some stuff or learning something, hit me up. Alright, so can I recommend any projects that would be impressive and help secure a job? And then the next one is kind of going back to a similar question. I was wondering what specifically I should have in a project. So think about it. You could like reverse engineer it. Like if you want to work for a web developer business where it's like a web shop and they make all different types of websites for their client, then maybe you want to show that you can do what it is that they would be hiring you to do if you were to get the job for them. So go look at their listing, you know, for the job and see what it says. If it says, oh, we need somebody that can make this kind of website, then go make that kind of website. And you don't have to make, you know, the full version if it's really complicated, like, but you can at least get like some of the main functionality and whatnot down. And so like if they're looking for a React position, then you need to put React in there, right? You can't like apply for a React job and not have any React stuff in your portfolio. Or if they want you to be a back-end, then you need some back-end work, things like that. So in terms of recommending projects that would be impressive in helping secure a job, if you missed it earlier, projects that are impressive are projects that are complete without bugs, they're functional, they look good, they have good styling, or at least, you know, like a free theme or something. Because if you're not good at CSS or styling, that's not your thing, you're more into the coding stuff, that's totally fine. There's people out there that are extremely good at it and they're selling their templates and their themes for like a couple dollars. So just implement somebody's pre-made theme and it'll make your project look and stand out a lot better. So stuff like that can be helpful. So I have made a project based on Yelp with a ML Python script running as a server end. It's a good one for my resume for applying to jobs as a beginner. I am currently in my third year. I assume you're talking about your third year of college. Similar, so ML, I don't know what ML is, but Python, is it using a framework like Flask or Django? I mean, it doesn't have to, obviously. But yeah, that sounds like a good, you know, if you built it already with Node and then you built it again with Python, like that's cool. I think an employer is going to appreciate that if that's your goal, is to get a job after school. No what? While I wait for you to answer. Just using child process. I'm not really sure what you're talking about right now. If you could specify, I'd appreciate it. Any cool project suggestions in vanilla JavaScript which covers many concepts? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do exactly. Like, so funny. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but it is interesting how, like, just because you don't know a lot about like JavaScript or Python or PHP or whatever the languages that you're learning, doesn't mean that you like lack creativity and whatnot. Like, if you're looking for projects to do, like, go see, there's just a wealth of stuff online on GitHub and all these different places, CodePen, etc., where other people are already putting out stuff, and it's totally fine to copy them. Obviously, you don't want to like copy and paste what they're doing. But I'm saying in terms of project ideas, like the ideas are out there. You just have to go look for them. But I constantly see like videos that trend on other YouTubers, coding tech YouTubers channels are like 80 different coding projects or like 10 projects that'll like guarantee you a job or stuff like that. And it's like what happened to like people's sense of like creativity and looking up, just coming up with something cool. Like think about it this way. The best way, in my opinion, when you're learning to code, to come up with a project that'll help you learn but also potentially look good on your resume or whatnot, is think of a problem that needs to be solved. Even if it's already being solved some other way, can it be solved better? And so that's where all these great apps come from. Like that's where Uber came from, right? Like, yes, we already have cabs, but what about like a cheaper, more personable type thing that also can employ, people across the globe and connect people in different ways, whatever their thing is. But they had a problem that maybe it's already being solved by taxi drivers, but you don't see taxi drivers just running around neighborhoods, right? You see them like in the city, going back and forth between airports. So now Uber kind of like took taxis and branched out. And obviously there's all these different problems that arose, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is they saw a problem, a need, and then they made an application that could solve that problem. And so it doesn't have to be that complex, right? You don't have to go make the next Uber or the next Facebook or whatever. But the point is, any of these companies and these apps and these different things, startups and whatnot, that are successful because they found a problem, a need, and they solved it. Like that's what it comes down to with everything. Like with you right now, why would you hire me to help tutor you? Because you have a problem, right? You can't solve something. And the only reason most of the time that people hire me is because they've tried every other avenue and they just can't figure it out. So either they have to give up or they have to hire someone. So they hire me, I help them get over that, and they get to the next thing, right? So there was a need, and I filled that need. So the same thing is with all these apps and all these different companies. Why do you go to the grocery store? Because you need food. So they fill that need. You go to the grocery store, you get food. Why do you go to the gas station? Because your car needs gas. It's all just supply and demand. So if you have a problem or that you can think of, like, something really simple is like a to-do app, right? Like I always forget stuff. So a to-do app helps remind me. So if you can code a to-do app, even though it's been done a million times before, that's going to help you learn how to code. It's going to, like, seriously, there's so many different things that are involved in just a simple to-do application that will help you be a better programmer. And so it may seem mundane, and obviously you can build on it or you can go with an entirely different project. It's up to you, but I'm just using this as an example. It's a need, right? You can't remember things, and rather than like walking around with string tied onto your fingers or like a notepad in your pocket, the thing that you already have with you all the time, your phone, you can create a mobile application or a web application, progressive web app, whatever it may be, and it can help you remember to do things. Now obviously that's already on your phone. It's called Google Calendar, Google Notes, Reminder, whatever. But the point is, from a learning standpoint, you can just replicate stuff. So like just copy, go into copy mode. So like Yelp Camp, it's just a copy of Yelp, Yelp, right? Sort of. Sort of. If you go look at Yelp Camp isn't really anywhere close to it. But the point is, you just take an idea and you copy it, right? So like you can make a social media like Facebook. Obviously you're not going to copy Facebook because you're not 1,000 developers that created Facebook. You're just one person. But you can make a social media where someone can have a wall and they can post and they can have friends and they can follow them. Like all that stuff you can do, and it's going to help you be a better programmer. So to answer your question, whether you use vanilla JavaScript or a framework or React or whatever, if you're looking for a cool project, and I'm just kind of using your question not to pick on you or anything, but just as a blanket for other people that are watching that have similar questions, is if you want to make a cool project that helps you learn, just find a problem, a need, and then solve it, right? So whether it's, I can't remember stuff, so I need a reminder app, or I need to schedule stuff, so I have a calendar app, or I need someone to pick me up and take me to this place, so I make a similar to Uber type app. the options are endless. So just open your eyes, look around you, see what other people are doing, see if you can do it better. Excuse me. No! Dry cough. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking too much. So now's a good time to be a coder. What did I do before getting into coding? I was a licensed irrigator for a while. I need some water. And so that was basically just like working on people's sprinkler systems. I did a lot of residential and then also some larger jobs where I just go out and like fix sprinklers. And it paid really well. I would get paid anywhere from like $20 to $40 an hour. And then I was an IT person for a while, mostly like almost completely residential, just fixing people's computers. That paid really well, like anywhere from $60 to $80 an hour. Not that you're asking about the pay, but I'm sure some other people that are watching are probably interested in it to know like what kind of money you can make in those kinds of areas. And let's see here. Sorry, I'm like talking so much that I'm sure my brain is like not getting enough oxygen, so I'm like forgetting stuff, which happens to me all the time when I'm lecturing in front of students. What else did I do? Quite a bit of stuff. I've had a lot of different jobs, but those are two of some of the most recent ones. I did marketing for a oil and gas heavy machinery manufacturing company for a while, and so I just made like their website, and I made their business cards and T-shirts and magazines and videos and everything. So let's see here. Is there a solution for good posture? I am suffering too. So I did have a posture corrector for a while. You see those people that are like drop shipping them or whatever. I bought one on Amazon a long time ago, where basically it's like kind of like straps from a backpack, and then you strap it up and it fixes your posture. I have a shoulder injury back from when I used to do MMA and used to work out frequently, and it's called a slap tear, but basically it's just like the whatever holds your shoulder together is kind of torn in a couple different places, and so there's fluid in there and stuff and inflammation, and so the straps after a while they hurt the shoulder. So for someone that doesn't have shoulder injuries, it might actually be pretty helpful. In fact, when I would get a lot of pain in my chest and my back and I would use the posture corrector, it was really helpful. So you might look into something like that, maybe buy 2 or 3 of them on Amazon, figure out which one's the best and then return the other ones, or just buy one at a time or whatever, however you want to do it, but ultimately just settle on whichever one you think is the best. Of course, in this day and age, if something is like 4.5, 5 stars on Amazon, like it has hundreds of reviews or thousands of reviews, like to survive on Amazon these days, you have to buy reviews. So a lot of those reviews are fake and it's total BS. So the point is, even if something's like 3 stars or 5 stars, just buy it. If you think it looks good to you, try it, see if it works. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, like don't try to make it work, right? If it's not working, then just send it back. And of course, make sure that you can get the refund before you buy it and all that. I do this thing called so the other thing is just moving a lot, like going for walks helps to relieve stress, and most people have decent posture when they're walking, so I try to walk as often as possible. And then there's exercises like you can stretch and get, like for me specifically, I have like costochondritis, I assume, type issues with my chest and back, where basically there's inflammation in the cartilage or something, and so the rib going all the way around to the back, so thoracic back to the spine, gets inflamed and it hurts in the front and the back. And so doing like stretches in the doorway, stretches in the corner, or just like stretches with your arms and different ways of like breathing to expand and get the inflammation out of the joints and stuff can be helpful. There's tons of stuff on YouTube that you can look up, but yeah, posture is tricky. If you're in front of the computer, I did a walk stand desk for a while where I would walk on the treadmill while I was working, and I discovered that doesn't necessarily fix your posture, because after a while you slouch while you're walking. Right now I'm sitting, and I've been sitting a lot lately, but this is a sit stand desk. Both my desks are sit stand, and I stood for a long time, but same thing. You can slouch while you're standing. You can lean on your desk and slouch and get tired. So I think, that's a what I just said is kind of a key, like being tired. If you're tired, it's hard to hold up your posture. So getting good sleep is really helpful. Excuse me, but that can like go into a whole nother thing. Like, if you're struggling with getting good sleep and whatnot. But if you can get good sleep and like you're not because you just like stay up late or whatever, which I'm guilty of, then that would be a good place to start. Because if your body is functioning properly and you're not exhausted, then it'll be easier. You'll have more energy to be able to like hold yourself up properly. There's other stuff out there online, but and then somatics are really nice. I do. If you look up Thomas Hanna, Thomas is spelled Thomas, and then Hanna Hanna. Somatics, Somatics. That stuff is really helpful also, especially for pain. Alright, so I'm using a child process node module to run my Python script, and when the script returns the output, my web app redirects to another page. While my script runs, I show a loading page using Ajax call. That sounds pretty cool. I'd be interested to like see your source code on GitHub to get a better idea of what it is that the app's doing, but it sounds pretty neat. Can you check my project and tell them I already started as a merge stack developer? That would be something that I would have to charge for. If you scroll up, you'll see my tinyurl.com/route booking link if you want to do some one-on-one tutoring or whatever. I review resumes, I review people's projects, I help with projects, stuff like that. But right now I'm just answering questions and like simple JavaScript related stuff. But if you want something more in depth, like actually going through your project, but I would ask you this, like if you have a project and you're wondering if you're ready to be a merge stack developer, do you know how to build a merge stack app is my question. Like, if you can answer yes to that, then you're ready. But if you're like, no, I'm really struggling with navigation, or struggling with like what props are or something like that, whatever it may be, then maybe you're almost there, but you're not completely ready, right? And you don't need to know everything. Don't ever think you need to know everything. Like, I'm currently working on a project where I'm working on somebody else's source code. They built like a script, and then I used it to deploy a website, and then I customized it. I don't know everything that's in there in terms of like understanding the whole code base, but I have the ability to problem solve. Every time I need to do something, I go in and I do it until it's done. So don't think that you need to know everything, but I guess the real question is, do you understand the fundamentals of building a merge stack application? And if you do, then yeah, you're probably at least ready for a junior developer position with that sort of role. Michael, you're very welcome. Thank you for taking the time to take the course, and I'm hoping that you're learning something. I'm glad to hear that you completed it and started rewatching it. That's really great. If you need help with anything, just let me know. How important is your GPA? And I guess it just depends. Like for me, I had a pretty good GPA. I think it was like a 4.3 or something like that, or not a 4.3, a 3. Well, I think 4 is like A, right? So I had like a 3.3 or 3.4. But it didn't matter for me. But I think it's different per person, and it depends on where you work, and it depends on what kind of job you're going to get. But my granddad, who's a really great guy, he teaches currently at multiple universities. He may only be at one now, but in New York, he's a like calculus slash what do they call it? Anyway, calculus instructor. Derivatives or whatever it is. He said something that kind of stuck with me, and basically he said, and it's not his quote, someone else said it, but it's something about how C students or A students work for C students or something like that. Let me just look it up and see if I can reference it so I don't butcher it. So give me just a second while I Google this. Okay, so I'm just gonna share the DuckDuckGo. There's some stuff by Robert Kiyosaki. I think he's that guy that made like Rich Dad Poor Dad or whatever. One of those gurus that has the book that you can buy. So be careful. Like, don't buy anything from him, obviously. But oh, someone's saying, no. Okay, yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad, good book. Yeah, okay, I haven't read it. Anyway, if you click on that link, you'll see just a bunch of different articles about A students work for C students or whatever. So obviously it's a common thing. I don't think that Robert Kiyosaki came up with that, but he may have. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he didn't. But anyway, that will hopefully answer your question in terms of GPA being useful. So I think the answer is it's complicated, but you don't necessarily have to be an A student to get a good job. Hey, Levi. All right, so there's only a couple left on here. I'm going to answer them real quick, and then I'm going to shut it down. And then also, before I get out of here, I just want to share something with you all. Normally, I ask for donations when I'm answering questions, but donations for me is what I mean, like buy me a cup of coffee or whatever. But actually, and see if I can even find it. Give me just 1 second, y'all. The moment I start mentioning donations, the people are just like, see ya, I'm out of here. Don't ask me for money. But, okay. So if you are interested in donating to a cause, and I know right now is a difficult time for everybody, so obviously no judgments if you can't. But rather than like buying me a cup of coffee, go check out that GoFundMe. It's something that I care a lot about, and if you felt like you want to give $1 or $2 to that cause, that would be really awesome. Alright, so moving on to the last couple questions. I'm considering taking LSD or psilocybin, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, to help me come up with creative ideas for web apps for my portfolio. Hopefully I'll come up with something that sets me apart from the crowd. Yeah, be careful. You might want to have somebody trip sit with you or whatever. Definitely don't take it on your own. And if you've never taken it before, don't take a lot, because I've had people tell me that it can be pretty intense. So I don't know everything, like how to make a friend request system like Facebook, auth, like SMS verify. Yeah, it's, you don't, right. So that was back to the MERN stack. Like, yeah, you can add those things to an existing app or make an app that helps you learn how to do those things, but you don't have to know those things. Those are things you can learn on the job, right? But if you can make the fundamental MERN stack application where you connect React with the backend Node application using Mongodb as a database, Express as the framework for the backend, and props and state, and maybe you use Redux, something like that. If you know the most of it, then you're more or less ready to go. And if you have a good project to show to employers, then that's gonna be good. Interesting. I don't know who that guy is. Alright, so somebody just said something mean about my cat. I don't even know I have a cat. You been watching my videos? If so, thanks. So I have watched Web Dev Bootcamp by Colt, but I think I am not confident with the basics, like in-depth details of the things. Basically, I think I have imposter syndrome. What can I do? Well, imposter syndrome is basically worrying that people are that you're a fraud. You're going to get found out for being a fraud. So if that is something that you're feeling, then there are ways to get around that, and I have, just go check my career advice videos. I have stuff where I talk about imposter syndrome. I could go into it, but I'm about to close this thing down. But go check out I have a what's it called? Playlist. See, this is why I gotta stop, because I'm running out of brain cells. And then somebody is spamming the wall right now. Do I play Minecraft? I haven't played Minecraft in a while. I used to like use it as like a Zen garden. I would just like build stuff and run around, but I never got super into it. I just played it on mobile. I never played on the computer. I've been playing a lot of PUBG Lite and PUBG Mobile lately, for anybody out there that's a gamer. Logan, what's up? And yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I haven't read it, Raul. I feel like that guy, I don't know a whole lot about that guy. I think from what I can tell, he's got an interesting story. I haven't read up on him a whole lot. I don't know that he necessarily falls into like fake guru, because I think he's done well for himself and he offers good advice. But I think what it comes down to is basically like people who spend money on assets are going to have more money overall. Assets are something that like appreciates in value like over time. So if you just have cash, then you're going to eventually, because of inflation, that cash is going to be less valuable. But if you put it into an asset like a house, or maybe a car that one day will become, you know, an antique or a classic or whatever, or obviously you could put it into the stock market or whatever, things that are actually going to make you money over time, then that is a good thing. But if you are putting your money into things that are just like eating away at your finances, then that's probably counterintuitive. And so I think he talks about like different lifestyles where people are spending their money in smart ways, and then people are investing their money in not smart ways. And there's probably a lot more to it. But anyway, going back to the whole A students work for C students, I think he probably comments on that, but hopefully you can find something else that also explains that concept. Do I vape? No. Vaping is so stupid. I used to smoke when I was a kid. I smoked cigarettes. I do not smoke anymore. Mayank, looking forward to an appointment with you one day as well. And yes, be safe. Everyone that's out there, please be safe. Thanks for hanging out. And yes, stay home if you can. Don't go out. And if you do go out, you know, follow the advice. Keep distance from people. Wash your hands. Don't touch metal. You know, don't touch anything if you can help it. But when you do touch stuff, you know, be mindful and wash your hands, etc. Social distancing. Flatten the curve. All right, everybody. Appreciate it. See y'all next time.